Have you ever wondered what goes into your favorite brand's digital marketing strategy? I'm Terrah, the founder of TJ Creative Agency.
And I'm Audrey, the creative marketing director of TJ Creative Agency. Whether you're an influencer, a business owner, a content creator, or just an overall creative person, we'll teach you how to create the perfect social media strategy and build your brand online. Well, welcome, Kori, to the podcast. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of in your own words.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me. So my name is Kori. You guys already know that. I am a conversion copywriter. I tell everyone that I work with cool creatives. That's about as specific as I get. But really, I tend to work mostly with, online entrepreneurs, service providers, kind of people in this online business space, and then some other people here and there, some e-commerce brands and things like that. But yeah, I've been doing this for just over 6 years in total now, and I specialize in website copy, sales copy, and email marketing, and love it.
Yeah. Just for a little background on you, how did you get started copywriting? Like, did you study like English or something in college? Like, what was your path to get here?
No, I actually studied theater in college.
Nice.
I entered college with the belief, like the deep-rooted belief that I was going to be the next Broadway star. And clearly, that dream died really fast. But I got into playwriting in college and then left college thinking that I would work in a theater somewhere in the literary department or something. And while I was trying to work my way into the theater industry, I was working in restaurants and needed a side hustle because I wasn't making enough money. And I literally posted just on my Instagram being like, does anyone know of any side hustle that I can do just to make a couple $100 a week? Like, it doesn't have to be a ton of money. And somebody that I knew from college was working for an agency that was mostly an SEO writing agency. And so they hooked me up with that. And that's kind of where I got my start. The agency paid like 1 cent a word. It was horrific. But that's where I learned everything that the baseline of everything that I know about copywriting came from working with that agency. And then in 2020, when I got laid off from my restaurant job, I twiddled my thumbs for a long time. Eventually, I found the world of virtual assisting through Jessica Hawks, which is like tale as old as time. Scrolling through TikTok, I was down the rabbit hole of like, what am I going to do with my life? And I found virtual assisting, and I started and immediately realized that I hated it. Was like, what can I fall back on? The copywriting. And that's kind of how I ended up where I am today.
Yeah. Awesome. 2 things on that. One, like a sidebar on theater kids. I swear to God, theater kids are like some of the most successful people I know. It's either like there's a theater kid to like fitness instructor pipeline. Like I feel like so many group fitness instructors were like in school for musical theater. Or I feel like they're just like super scrappy. I know a bunch of people who went to school for musical theater or like some kind of same thing. They were like, I'm going to be on Broadway, blah, blah, blah. Somehow they've all started their own businesses. I'm like, good for you guys. Like, it's either the fitness instructor or like entrepreneur pipeline. Those are your options if you don't end up on Broadway.
There you go.
There's something about that training that like has you like smiling, like talking.
Yeah.
Like confidence.
Literally.
Yeah, fitness instructor makes sense too because they have the stamina.
Yeah. Other thing with the virtual assistants, it's funny you say that because I feel like we've had several podcast guests say the same thing, and they're all in different versions of digital marketing, whether it's like social media management or copywriting like you. I feel like the virtual assistants is kind of like the entry for a lot of people in digital marketing.
Yes. And then you kind of realize go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, and then you realize that you don't want to check other people's emails for a living. And you're like, actually. Yeah.
And that's so fair. I wouldn't want to check other people's emails for a living either. I barely like to check my own.
Same.
So yeah, I would kind of love to jump into, so you were at this SEO agency. How did you kind of pivot into what you do now? And also, can you give a little bit of a, like, what exactly is it that you do? Like, what are your services? What do people hire you for? Like, how did you transition into that?
Yeah, so my bread and butter right now, I would say, is writing websites. That is primarily what I do. I have a day rate offer that is definitely my most popular. But then I also do, big, long projects as well. And mostly it is website writing, but I also do a lot of sales copy, and occasionally I get to work on an email project. Like I just did a VIP day yesterday where I was writing a launch sequence for a product for emails, which was really fun. And when I decided to pivot into copywriting, I knew right away that I didn't want to do SEO. It's too technical for me. It doesn't
Yeah.
have the creative flair that I enjoy. Having those skills in my back pocket is really, really useful. I use it in everything that I write. I just don't offer it as like a standalone service.
Yeah.
But really, it was just knowing that I wanted to be able to be creative while still flexing these skills that I have.
Yeah. I love that. So how were you able to, I'm sure there's going to be people listening to this that would like to know how you got those original clients. Like how were you able to actually turn it into a business?
Yeah, I was lucky because I had an existing network of business owners because of the virtual assisting. Like I just pivoted those
Yeah.
followers into potential clients basically. So I mean the best piece of advice really is just to network, which is such lame advice, but it is just to like put yourself out there and see what happens. Because really what I did is when I made this decision to switch, I was just reaching out to people like or making posts like, hey, I am pivoting into copywriting. If anybody is interested, I'm running beta prices for everything, like gonna be really cheap. Let's, connect, because I already had like friendship connections with my audience of fellow entrepreneurs. So that made it really, honestly, an easier transition than I was expecting. I felt really lucky because when I did pivot, I was finding clients right away, which was really nice and something I didn't experience in my virtual assisting foray.
Yeah. So, okay, I kind of want to pivot into like the nitty gritty of copywriting because I really like, let's just define it to begin. Like what exactly is copywriting and what is its role in terms of marketing? Like what does it mean in the eyes of like a business owner?
Mm-hmm. So, copywriting is really just as simple as words for your business. At least I think it is. It's words that sell, words that are, written for your business in order to connect you with your target audience. And so that can look like words on your website or words on your packaging or words on your social media, your blog, your emails, everything that is, I don't even want to say sales focused, but brand focused writing, that is copywriting, or at least it falls under the copywriting umbrella. And I completely forgot the second half of your question.
Just like what kind of role does it play in marketing? Like if a business owner came to you, because I'm sure there's people who are like, I know how to write. You know what I mean? Where they're like, what exactly does a copywriter provide that obviously, like we kind of know, obviously there's a skill set like Terrah and I talk about all the time, like copywriting is not our strong suit, but there's definitely people who are like, why would I pay someone to do it? Like, how does that elevate their marketing and their branding and everything like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always say that copywriting is 85% research and like 15% writing. I think that being good at writing is a really great skill to have if you want to learn copywriting. But copywriting really is like the art and science of figuring out how to write something that people will be excited to read and that will also incite action. And that action doesn't necessarily have to be like direct sales, like add to cart, here's my credit card. That action can be like subscribing, following, interacting, but knowing what people want to hear or need to hear in order to make that move, that's what copywriting is.
Cool. That's so interesting. And how are you able to, this was just like a curiosity question as I was writing this outline. How are you able to determine your success as a copywriter? Like, are there analytics that you're looking at? Are there specific numbers? Like, what are you looking at to see, okay, I've done my job right?
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the product, like what I'm writing, the client, and their own idea of success. I mean, I think the obvious ones are like conversion rates on a website, how many, numbers, how many sales did they make, how much money have they made, how many clicks did it get? Like there are actual metrics and analytics that you can track, in the same way that you can track where people are getting hung up on a website, stuff like that. But I definitely have broadened my idea of like a success metric in the past couple of years because, there are so many success factors that aren't tied directly to income. Things like gaining a new follower or getting a message from someone that's like, I loved this. Like, I think that a piece of successful copywriting definitely depends on your expectations for it. But you have to be able to look past just the direct, like one-to-one. I spent this much on this and I made this much from it, because there's so much more to it. And copywriting is so evergreen that it continues to gain an ROI over time.
I feel like you could say the same about a lot of creative marketing endeavors.
Yes.
Like it's really hard, that one-to-one, which is how a lot of business owners view things, right? Very black and white. I spent this, I should get this in return. And they want it to happen like immediately. As soon as you deliver the product, they want to be able to see that return. And it's the same kind of thing. Like it might take a while, or like it might not happen immediately, or it's a different kind of success. Like it might not be a monetary success,
Yeah, it's like, even if you have, if you release a piece of content that somebody really likes, and then you then have a person who's watching your brand, sticking around, waiting, like that, it could take them 6 months to make a purchase to see an ROI on that. But that is still success because you did still capture somebody's heart, brain, mind,
I've talked about this so much on the podcast. I used it as an example yesterday, the like dog brand Wild One. I've been following them for like so long. Even before I had a dog, I was getting like their ads and whatnot. Haven't bought from them until this morning. And it's been months of me being aware of who they are. And sometimes it's as simple as like someone might be following you because they love your vibe and they love that you're an expert in a certain area, but you might not even have a product that they want yet. You know what I mean? Like it might be months down the line until you develop a new course or you offer a new service or whatever it is. And then they are the target audience.
Yeah, they're just waiting for the right thing for them.
Yeah. Okay, so how exactly is copywriting, like how does that bridge the gap between the service providers and their target audience? Like how does it bring them together?
That's a really good question. I really think that it's part intuition but mostly just understanding and like really deeply understanding the target audience. So when I talk a lot about like research backed or data backed copywriting, and I think what I'm referring to for the most part is voice of customer data, which is basically just understanding the voice of the customer. And so you do this in a couple of different ways. You can do it through market research, you can do it through competitor research, and you can do it through something that marketers call message mining, copywriters call message mining, which is basically just combing through testimonials, combing through reviews, combing through anything that people are saying about a product or about a service or about a similar product or service, and understanding the language that they're using surrounding that product or service, and then turning that into copy that speaks directly to them.
Okay.
That's super interesting, isn't it?
I'm glad that you go ahead.
I just feel like it's so much like the creative that we do as social media managers, but it's a different, you know what I mean? Yeah. I really think that's super interesting and helpful.
I'm glad that you brought up the data backed as well, because that was kind of my next question. I saw on your website or it was a post, or you put it somewhere, that you do like data backed copywriting, and I was going to ask what that looks like. So to really dumb it down for someone, me, who is not a copywriter, or like knows anything about this. When you're doing this research, like, are you really looking for like the same words to pop up a lot, or phrases or things like that?
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. So yeah, it's voice of customer data, and then data backed also kind of refers to understanding what performs and what doesn't, you know, the actual like metrics of it all. But in terms of collecting the voice of customer data, you're really looking for through lines in what people are saying about a product or a service. That is the meat of your messaging. And if you have, you know, 18 people saying this product is transformational, you can then take those exact turns of phrases, reflect it back to that audience, and have them understand, like, oh my gosh, they get me. It's like they're stealing the words out of my mouth because you
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So I want to kind of talk about like the different components of high converting copy. Like, what do you think really makes something high converting, essentially? Like, you write copy, but what exactly does that copy have? Like, what are the different components of it that are actually going to make people convert?
Mm-hmm. I think it definitely depends on the what actual piece of copy that you're writing and the different elements that you would include. But I think that a couple of key things to make sure that you are including in every piece of copy is, first of all, making it super skimmable. I think that with DIY copy specifically, us as the entrepreneur who owns the product and created the product and put all of our time and energy into this product, we know so much about it. We love it so much. And it's so tempting to want to just brain dump every little tiny detail about this product that you can into this piece of copy. Like, I will obviously, like, nobody actually cares that the product was built in Kartra versus Thrivecart. They care that it works. And so you have to be able to make it skimmable and make the bullet points the things that people actually care about. And I think one of the best ways to do that, if you're trying your hand at your own copy, is think about the narrative of the product or the offer, and think about the journey or the transformation that it takes the customer on, and write the copy almost like you're telling the customer the story of their success through this product. Break it down into an actual like narrative transformation, and then add the details of like 18 video modules and here's the price. Add that throughout the narrative, but start with the skeleton of the narrative first.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I do like that you brought up the skimmable part, because it's so true. Like, sometimes as the business owner, like, you're just a little too close. You're a little too close to the product or the service that you want to share every single detail because you are so proud of it. And you're like, this is all the work that I've put into it. When nobody, to be honest, like, most people don't care. Most people are like, what can you do for me?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's sad because you write a website or you write a sales page and you just want people to be as excited about it as you are. So you want them to soak up every word, but it's just not going to happen. You have to write with the assumption that people are only going to read the headlines, you know?
Yeah. What do you think the biggest challenges are for people who either are trying to copyright, or maybe some of your clients, like why they come to you? Like, what are some of the challenges that most people face in copywriting?
I think the biggest one is what you just brought up, which is just being too close to an offer to even understand what it is that you're supposed to say about it.
Yeah.
I've had that problem before. Like, I've been writing my own website and stopped and thought, should I just hire someone to do this? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be saying. And it's like, as somebody who does this every day of her life. But yeah, I think being too close to an offer or being too close to their own business is a huge one. And then I think the other problem that people have often, which is not necessarily a problem that copywriting can fix, but something that I'm happy to help my clients with, is not understanding their audience well enough, or not having done the research around the offer to understand if the audience actually wants the offer. And that's when copywriting fails, because, you know, it falls back onto the actual entrepreneur to understand whether or not the people want this offer. And good copywriting can't sell an offer that nobody wants, you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's really similar. We say the same thing. Like, if your business model isn't good or you have a service that nobody wants, doesn't matter how much we push it on social, no one's going to buy it. You know, all the marketing tools, which I think people just like, so many people think any sort of marketing, whether it's like copywriting as a marketing tool, social media, like any sort of digital marketing, whatever. I think so many people are like, this will save my business. And it's like, no, it's only going to elevate the groundwork that you already have laid, you know?
Yeah, it took me a long time to realize that the success of an offer doesn't fall onto my shoulders, and to like release the guilt of like, oh, they didn't hit their sales goal, well, it must have been my sales page. It took me a long time to think of copy as a part of the system, as opposed to like the whole solution, you know?
Yeah. So let's say someone maybe doesn't have the resources to hire someone at the moment for copywriting, and they want to kind of DIY their site a little bit. What are some tips that you might have for them? Some strategies for effective copywriting?
Yeah, maybe I shoot myself in the foot when I say this, but I actually think that copywriting is a skill that most people have the ability to learn. There's the people who are like, I am not a good writer and I don't have any interest in being a good writer, and I would rather let somebody else do this. But there are plenty of people, I think, that have all the skills that they already need to write their own copy. So I would say, first of all, it's so key to do your research, understand your audience, and really, really deeply and understand who you're talking to, and consistently like keep your finger on the pulse of that. Your ideal client 6 months ago isn't going to be the same as your ideal client now, just like you're not the same person you were 6 months ago. And then I would say, and this is all like super basic advice, but I would say, right, like you're talking specifically to that ideal client, and make sure that your brand is centralized around them as opposed to centralized around you or your team or your, even your vision. Like those are like the cherry on top, but really you're trying to show how your ideal client is an active part of your brand, or how they can be an active part of your brand. And then like technically, again, keep it skimmable, really focus your energy on your headlines and your CTAs. Make sure that you're writing it all in the same tense, in the same, like, first person or third person. And don't let typos slip through. I think that people are really lax about typos.
I was just gonna ask if you think they are like detrimental.
It depends. I think like one accident that you're like willing to own up to and be like, oops, made a typo, like it can really humanize a brand in a way that, like, sometimes people will send out email campaigns that are like, draft for this date, mega sale, and then they'll like be like, oops, the intern accidentally sent this out. Like people eat that up. But I think if you're consistently having like typos or grammatical errors throughout your copy, it really signals to the world that you do not care about what's going on.
Yeah. That's something we've struggled with, is just like the spelling errors. We get called out quite a bit, but have since we've added Grammarly, obviously, to catch them. And, there's some tools out there.
A second person to edit everything, any copy. I'm like, I don't trust my own eyes. I'm like, someone else look this over. So I have our operations girl look slash copywriter look over like anything I write. I'm like, does this look good? Even like graphics and stuff. I'm like, anything going on here that I need to fix? Like, I do not trust myself anymore.
Yeah.
That's honestly,
when you're the creative, or when you're making the creative, you're so focused on the creative that you forget, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not your priority.
Yeah. Or when you've been staring at a piece of content or copy for hours, like it could literally be right in front of your face and you will not even think twice about it.
That's
sometimes like Megan's, it's like you're going so fast and you're like in your brain, you're like, I know what that word is supposed to be. So I just accept that this misspelling is what it's supposed to be. Like you just don't even recognize it. Okay, I wanted to kind of jump back to that ideal audience conversation. This is actually a conversation we just had the other day about determining our ideal audience. Is that something that you help your clients with? Or if you have someone come to you and they don't really have that set up, do you send them like back to the drawing board and say, come back to me when you have this figured out? Like, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, I think that, well, yes. So I am really good at discerning whether or not it's time for people to invest in copywriting. And I'm really big on it being like an empowering and honestly an ethical investment that they're making into their brands. And I want it to work. Obviously, for myself, I want it to work and I want it to work for them. And so if a person comes to me and they have, let's say, a brand new business, they're like, I think I want to do this, but I have no idea. I will happily send them away, tell them to come back to me in a year, come back to me in 6 months when you have a good understanding of your audience, you know, your vision, your mission, your voice, your messaging, like who your brand is and who your audience is. Because writing copy for a brand that's going to be completely different in 6 months because you don't have those foundations laid is a waste of my time. It's a waste of their money. So it definitely is a matter of understanding at the very least who you work with, why you work with them, and how you serve them. I can work with that. But for the most part, if somebody is just like, I don't know, but I think I need copy, I will absolutely send them away because it's just not time.
Yeah. What if somebody comes to you and is like, just everybody, like, we just want to speak to everybody? Like, I feel like that's so common. They're like, we'll be like, what's your ideal age range? And they're like, really anywhere between 20 and 80. And you're like, well, that's like not really what we're talking about.
Yeah, I was like, you really think you're going to get 80-year-olds on Instagram? Like, come on. I feel like that honestly maybe happens a little bit more in social media than it does in copywriting, because I think like, especially thinking about websites, like it does kind of have to be the heartbeat of the brand. You have to be able to really, really reflect what is going on internally. And I ask a ton of questions, you know, before I start working with somebody, and then when I'm onboarding them, that really force them to kind of get to the heart of who they actually work with, or serve, or who their ideal client is. But if somebody told me I want to talk to everybody, or you know, my audience is everyone, I would definitely encourage them to think twice about that. Even brands that do kind of appeal to the masses, to a wider range of people, like Apple, for instance, like they still have a demographic and a target audience that they are targeting. So it's like you can still have a brand that attracts a wide range of people with a target audience.
There's still like, even keeping on that Apple topic, like they're still selling at a certain price point. People need to make a certain amount of money. They need to care about technology. Like there's definitely still people out there that are like, I'm fine with my flip phone and pager. Like, you know what I mean? There's still, even though it sounds like they're talking to everybody, they're not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people get worried, I think, about excluding potential buyers.
I completely agree. I did want to talk about, you had mentioned that you ask all of your clients like certain questions in onboarding. What kind of questions are you asking before a client comes on to work with you?
So I'm trying to really understand, first of all, well, something that's interesting is I work with a lot of, I was just listening to an episode of your podcast actually, and you called it like founder forward brands, like people whose founders are the face of the brand. And that's not the only type of entrepreneur or business that I work with, but it's the majority. So first of all, I'm really trying to understand the personality, whether that's of the founder, of the brand. I'm trying to find, words, turns of phrases that they use really frequently, the way that they describe things. So I'm asking a lot of questions that are like, talk to me about this specific thing in your own words. Or, I'm going through their Instagram and seeing like how they sign off, what their most frequently used words are, how they describe things. And then the second part of it is understanding their offers and understanding their understanding of their offers. Like, who do they think it's for? What do they think the transformation is? Is that true, or is that something that we need to adjust in the messaging?
Yeah.
And then it's a lot of like logistical questions. Like, one of my favorite questions is, are there any trends or like things that you see in your industry that you dislike, that you don't want to use? A lot of people answer like girl boss and like, the boss babe stuff, which I'm like, totally got it. Will not use that in your copy. And I also like to know what people like about their business and what they like about the people that they work with. I think that speaks a lot to, the quality of their business, that they can talk about the people that they work with and why they like doing it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this was a great insight, especially at like even coming from me who doesn't really know much about this space. I feel like this was super informative and super helpful. Is there anything that you feel like people ask you a lot, or just misconceptions about copywriting or that whole industry that we haven't talked about that you would like to cover?
No, I mean, honestly, I think that the most frequent thing that people have when they're talking about frequent like misbelief that people have about copywriting is that it's creative writing and that anybody could do it. And I do actually think that anybody could do it, but it's a skill that has to be learned and it has to be practiced. But we already went over all of the research stuff. It's just, creative writing is great, but it's just not copywriting.
Right. Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Kori. I loved this episode. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram at by Kori Whitby. And then who knows if it'll be around by the time this episode comes out, but I just got really into threads. So you can get on my threads.
Oh yeah, there we go. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I'm having a blast over on threads. But honestly, I always tell people, get onto my Instagram and then click that link in my bio and join my email list, because that's where I'm the most candid. That's where I'm the most helpful. And that's where I connect with people most frequently. So I always think my email list is the place to be.
That's awesome.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Kori. Loved this episode. I hope everybody at home enjoyed this episode. And we will talk to you next week.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.